When change happens in Disney World, new rules are going to follow. So here are the new rules that you need to keep in mind before you take on Disney World's hottest rides. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. Rules, rules, rules. Sometimes this word can seem like a laundry list rather than something fun to study up on before a big trip. But today's video is a mix of real Disney ride rules that are as interesting as they are helpful, as well as our own new DFB ride rules to follow that we've been recently using or planning on using during our Disney World trips now and in the future, thanks to all the changes. First rule, no riding the train to Frontierland. Sorry folks, the Frontierland train station is closed until further notice. Magic Kingdom's in the middle of a major expansion right now. Don't know if you heard about it. One that's going to add a new Cars Land area called Piston Peak and the new Villains area. Both lands will bring new attractions and shops and restaurants and more in what Disney calls Magic Kingdom's biggest expansion to date. But in order to make this expansion happen, first comes the multi-year growing pains. Magic Kingdom is very construction heavy at the moment, and while that's not going to take away from your entire park experience, it will impact your experience when you're over in the Frontierland section. And while Big Thunder Mountain is still down for the count for major renovations too until 2026, your time in Frontierland is really going to feel shortchanged, so brace yourself. Now, when we first heard about all these closures and construction areas, we worried that we'd have to lose the Walt Disney World Railroad again. And I say again because we lost it for like 5 years while Tron Light Cycle Run was being built. Remember that? I can remember saying here on the channel that there are children who are in kindergarten who were literally not born before that train went down for the count. Fortunately, Disney came up with a temporary solution, though, to make sure we can still ride the train, regardless of it not being able to make a pit stop in Frontierland. Currently, the route has been modified, so instead of making a whole loop around the park, you're going to go forward from the Main Street USA station, end up at the Fantasyland station, and then go backwards to make it back to the Main Street station, avoiding Frontierland entirely. Because of this change, Disney has also modified the seats in the locomotive, so now half of them are turned to face the opposite direction. The train is still a great way to get from Main Street to Fantasyland or vice versa, and save yourself the extra steps in the process. Just don't rely on it to take you on over to the backside of the park, at least not for the foreseeable future. So our first DFB rule of the video, when to use extended evening hours, and I am very adamant about this one. So extended evening hours are returning in 2026 to Walt Disney World. So what does that mean? Well, if you're staying at a deluxe Disney resort or deluxe villa resort, you're going to be able to spend up to 2 extra hours in a certain park on a certain night after those parks officially close. Extended evening hours are a great way to sneak in more rides with significantly lower crowds. Sometimes those extended evening hours feel like you're the only person in the park, and you don't have to pay any extra for an after hours event. That being said, you're still going to have to pay the higher price for a deluxe level hotel each night, right? So you really have to decide if the deluxe level cost is worth investing in, namely for those extended evening hour perks. Now, here's what I'm going to say about extended evening hours. I think they can be totally worth it on the nights that they're offered for Magic Kingdom, because you've still got over 20 attractions that'll stay open for you to experience during those extra 2 hours of time. Now, this does not include Tiana's Bayou Adventure or my beloved People Mover, unless they decide to magically open People Mover if another ride nearby goes down, which has happened to me before, and it was glorious. A big win for the president of the unofficial People Mover fan club, for sure. Another great thing about Magic Kingdom extended evening hours, you can get Dole Whips. Aloha Isle is open the whole time, so there's definitely snackage that can be done. However, on the rare occasion that Animal Kingdom offers extended evening hours, I personally would not invest in a deluxe level resort stay to take advantage of it. Sure, seeing Animal Kingdom after the sun sets is cool, but right now only 4 rides in that park are open during extended evening hours. That's a whole lot fewer than 20, and that's still counting Dinosaur, so it'll be even fewer rides once that closes in February. Now, if you were already planning on staying at a deluxe level resort anyways, and the stars align where you'll be able to use the extended evening hours for Animal Kingdom, then by all means, don't waste that opportunity. Take it if you got it. But if you're able to plan your deluxe resort stay around a time when extended evening hours are being offered for Magic Kingdom, I definitely check that Disney World hours and events calendar, and if you can take advantage of it, definitely do it. It's so worth it. Now here's a bonus rule for you. Some deluxe resort stays can hook you up with extended evening hours and give you a better room deal in the process. For example, if I were to book just a standard room at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort, I'm looking at paying an average of $700 per night for that privilege in non-busy season. However, I could instead book a whole cabin that sleeps up to 6 guests over at Fort Wilderness Resort for around $400 per night and receive not only more wiggle room, but the same extended evening hours perks. And if you're a Marriott Bonvoy member, you can use your collected Marriott points to help pay for a room at either the Swan or Dolphin Hotel or the Swan Reserve, which is going to give you the very rare privilege of extended evening hours without having to book a Disney-owned hotel. I'd also recommend keeping your eye on Disney's special offers, deals, and discounts page, since deluxe resorts are known to be 20 to 30% off their original price during several times throughout the year. Sometimes select rooms might even be 40% off if you time your visit right. So in that case, places like Animal Kingdom Lodge and Wilderness Lodge are going to have much cheaper rooms and still get you that extended evening hours benefit. Okay. So you're going to have to follow me closely on this one. Are we ready? Okay, we're ready. We got mind meld. Because if you use this lightning lane rule, you'll be able to pre-select multi-pass lightning lanes even earlier and without having to book a Disney-owned hotel room to make it happen. If this is your first time hearing about lightning lanes or you just need a quick recap, this is Disney's pay to skip the ride line service that'll let you bypass the main ride queues in exchange for much shorter waits. We got a whole free guide that really goes in depth with how this works, which you can pick up right now by scanning the QR code you see on the screen or by clicking on the link in the description for disneyfoodblog.com/multipass after this. But right now, I'm just going to focus on the multipass side of things to make sure you understand how this new rule works. When you purchase multipass, you'll have an opportunity to pre-select up to 3 lightning lanes before your visit. All the rest of your lightning lanes can be collected one by one immediately after you use a lightning lane. So use a lightning lane, get a lightning lane, and constantly keep hold of up to 3 during your park day. If you're staying at a Disney-owned hotel, your pre-selection time frame starts 7 days before your check-in day. But if you'll be staying off property, your pre-selection time frame doesn't start until 3 days before your check-in day. Okay, now put a pin in that lightning lane concept real quick because we're going to return to that. But first, I'm going to shift to talking about park tickets for a second, and you'll see how it all connects. If you are not a Disney hotel guest, but you will be purchasing tickets to spend multiple days in the Disney World parks, you will be able to select the start date for your tickets. The start dates will give you a range of days to use your tickets. Here's a visual example of how it works. If I want to purchase 3 park ticket days, I'll be given a 5-day window. So I can use my 3 park days however I want to during that 5-day time frame. All right, so this is where the multipass hack comes back in. You can actually pre-book your lightning lanes 3 days before the first day of your park ticket eligibility, not 3 days before you actually plan on using your ticket. Let me show you. If I were to book a multi-day date-based trip and select a park ticket window that starts on Monday, yet I don't plan on using my park tickets until Wednesday, my 3-day lightning lane window, regardless, will still open on the Friday before. And that, my friends, is how you can still book your lightning lanes earlier, even if you're not staying at a Disney-owned hotel. It's been a classic DFB rule of ours to use the last hour or 2 of your time in the parks to hit up any last-minute rides, considering crowds will die down the later it gets. But I want to go ahead and update that classic rule of ours real fast for you, because I don't want you to rely on this and have it mess up your entire day. So that end-of-the-night strategy works great for most rides. If you're planning on hitting up an outdoor coaster like Tron Light Cycle Run or Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, though, in Magic Kingdom, or Slinky Dog Dash in Hollywood Studios, sometimes the ride lines for these coasters actually spike toward the end of the night, since the ride experience feels different and even feels a little faster or clearer once the sun sets. You kind of get a different experience on this ride, whether you're riding during the day or at night. Same thing used to happen for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, right? So this is especially true for Tron, since you've got that outdoor glowing grid to look forward to, which really is the best way to ride this one, although it's still a fun coaster day or night. And I'm predicting again that once Big Thunder Mountain Railroad reopens next year, the same new rules are going to apply, since this too is an outdoor coaster coaster, and an outdoor coaster that's going to have a lot of new glowing effects that I'm sure are going to be striking after sunset. So when's the best time to get in line for those outdoor coasters and still get a nighttime ride through on them, minus the forever long waits? Well, nighttime shows are always a good place to start, specifically right before they happen, since lots of people are going to be staking out their spots to see the show versus standing in line for a ride. In the case of Magic Kingdom, you might find the best outdoor ride luck right before the first Disney Starlight Dream the Night Away parade happens. Usually the first nighttime parade showing before Happily Ever After has higher attendance than the second showing after Happily Ever After, giving you more of a window to get on some of those outdoor rides while others are prioritizing the shows. If you have the energy left over, you can also get in line for these rides right up until closing time, like 5 to 10 minutes before even, but this can be a gamble too. As long as a queue line hasn't been closed off yet, you'll be able to jump in line for it and not worry about being kicked out even after the park closes. But if a ride experiences some sort of technical issue and needs to close, there's a chance it'll just stay closed for the remainder of the evening, and you'll have to cut your losses. So this is more of a strategy that you can use when you've already ridden an attraction before, but not one I'd completely rely on if this is your first time and only time experiencing it, and you're not sure when you're going to be back in Disney to try riding it again. Okay, now our next DFE rule is our end of the night rule part 2. Yep, planning your nighttime rides around Disney Starlight Dream the Night Away is a great strategy, but let's be careful about how we plan around those nighttime rides, because Disney Starlight could actually lead to bigger ride lines than you were expecting to encounter so late at night. Sorry, I know. That's why we call it new rules for Disney rides, because all this stuff has just launched and there's so much more you need to know as you're planning around these new shows, right? Okay, so before we can understand how on earth a nighttime parade could inadvertently lead to bigger ride lines, let me show you the Disney Starlight path. Disney Starlight takes the same path that Festival of Fantasy uses during the day, only in reverse order. So while Festival of Fantasy starts in Frontierland, cuts through Liberty Square, and ends in Main Street, USA, I wish you could see me recording this, you guys, because I'm like, my hands are moving and I'm like showing you on the map where things go, where the parade goes. It's like I'm sitting here alone in my office and I'm literally showing you how the parade kicks off. Anyway, all right, I look like an idiot. Moving on. So yes, Festival of Fantasy starts in Frontierland, cuts through Liberty Square, ends in Main Street, USA, but Disney Starlight starts on Main Street, USA, cuts through Liberty Square, and ends in Frontierland. Either way, you're cutting through Liberty Square, right on past Haunted Mansion. So going on Haunted Mansion before Disney Starlight is one thing, but the thing about many Disney guests is that they like to plan around convenience. So all those people who are piled around Liberty Square to watch those parade floats come through may very well then pile into the Haunted Mansion line immediately after, just because it's the closest attraction to them that they can get in line for right after the show. And that means Haunted Mansion's ride line is going to spike to a much higher weight right after the parade passes through Liberty Square than you might have expected for this one this late at night. This will more than likely be the same situation, if not even worse, for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad when it opens in 2026. So again, don't always automatically assume that a ride line will be shorter just because it's nighttime. Same thing with Tiana's Bayou Adventure over there. Now, because other factors are definitely at play here, it could really throw your Disney in the Dark plans for a loop. So we're going to keep watching the numbers. We track those wait times every single day, and we're going to keep checking those to see if this kind of comes to fruition or if you're going to be okay. But we always say right after a parade passes through Liberty Square, do not get in line for Haunted Mansion. So let's say you decide not to wait until the end of the night to get your Tron Light Cycle Run fix. It's still a fun experience either way, and if you go the daytime route instead, you could very well run into the shortest wait time for it without needing a lightning lane, thanks to one of Magic Kingdom's newest rules. Just in case you're not familiar with early theme park entry, this is a 30-minute head start that all Disney hotel guests can use on any of their park days before a park's official opening hours. Previously, people using the early theme park entry perk for their Magic Kingdom morning were only able to access rides in the Fantasyland and Tomorrowland areas during that extra half hour of time, except for Tron Light Cycle Run, which still stayed closed off until rope drop. That meant early entry guests were blocked from entering other areas of the park like Frontierland, Liberty Square, and Adventureland. But starting back in March 2025, early entry guests can now get in line for the rides located in those other three lands, as well as get in line for the Tron coaster, even if those rides still won't officially open until rope drop. So So if you have that early theme park entry privilege and Tron is a must-do attraction for you, you might want to head there first thing. I know, it can sound like a waste of time to use your 30-minute head start just waiting in line for a ride when you could be using it to actually get on other rides. But if you think about it this way, getting in line for Tron 30 minutes ahead of time and getting up towards the front of the queue could really save you a whole lot of time in the grand scheme of things, since later on in the day, you're going to be looking at wait times for this one ranging from 60 to 90 minutes on average. And according to cast members, early entry guests can also start putting their things inside the Tron lockers as early as 8:45, meaning you'll be more than ready to hop on your light cycle as soon as the clock strikes 9. Okay, lots of change has been going on in Disney World. Rides have opened, shows have closed, more attractions have come and gone, and that means we've been seeing a whole switcheroo of Lightning Lane tiers lately. Again, I am not here to overload you with Lightning Lane terminology and lectures that could be dissected during a college course, but if Lightning Lanes are new to you, let me very quickly explain how the multi-pass tier system works. When you go to pre-select your 3 Lightning Lanes from any of the parks, besides Animal Kingdom, where the tier system doesn't exist, you can pre-select one Tier 1 Lightning Lane in advance. Those are the most popular rides, as well as 2 Tier 2 Lightning Lanes. Or you can choose all 3 from Tier 2 if you really want to do that. Tier 1 Lightning Lanes are like the middleman of the skip the ride line world. They're not quite popular enough to need a single pass Lightning Lane, but they're still popular enough to rack up long waits, and more than likely be the key multi-pass options that people are going to place at the top of their priority list. But just because a ride has been added as a Tier 1 or a Tier 2 option before, doesn't mean it'll stay that way. Best example of this, after the revamped version of Test Track opened in Epcot, it was added back as a Tier 1 multi-pass selection, and so that bumped Soarin' down to Tier 2. The Little Mermaid, a musical adventure, opened back in May at Hollywood Studios, and not too long after that, it received its own Lightning Lane as a multi-pass Tier 2. Though you really don't need to pre-select this one, because even without the Lightning Lane, you should still be able to get in to see it just fine. Of course, Lightning Lane tiers are going to continue to make adjustments as more attractions open and close in the future. So just be on your toes and know that if one Lightning Lane shifts, there's a good chance it'll impact other Lightning Lanes in the same park as well. Next DFB rule, have an intergalactic game plan in place before you board. So next year, you and your fellow crewmates on board Millennium Falcon, Smugglers Run in Hollywood Studios will have the chance to not only pilot, defend, and engineer your ship, but also for the first time ever, choose where your adventure is going to take place. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like just yet exactly. I just know that I can already see hurt feelings bubbling up with this one. Disney has announced that in May 2026, new missions will be added to the Smugglers Run ride, allowing you to explore various Star Wars settings like Bespin, Tatooine, the ruins of the Death Star, Coruscant, Beggar's Canyon, and more. And where you end up going will all be up to the engineer, who's going to be charting those courses throughout your entire journey. Again, I don't know what this is going to look like. Maybe there'll be a button that the engineer will press before the ride starts, or maybe they're going to have to make a quick time decision during the ride. But what I do know is that Smugglers Run creates pretty high tension already, and this Choose Your Own Adventure edition will probably elevate that to the nth degree, especially for siblings. That's going to be rough. Now, before you board the Millennium Falcon, your group's going to have to make a game plan while you're waiting in line for the ride. Who's going to have what roles, and where should the engineer prioritize taking you? Try to decide this before you get up to the front so there aren't any meltdowns taking place during the boarding process. Also, if your kiddos are arguing over the same position, consider a re-ride. After all, Smugglers is going to be a very re-rideable experience, what with all these new destinations. So maybe one kiddo can be the engineer first, and then you can get in line again later on so that the other kiddo can have their turn being the engineer too. It's also a good idea to set expectations in general with your ride group beforehand. Even if your family of 4 knows and agrees on what ship positions each person wants before you get on the ride, each Millennium Falcon ride-through holds 6 people, so that group of 2 ahead of you could very well call dibs on the pilot or engineer positions, even though those were 2 of the positions your family really wanted. It's all look of the draw, and really no position is a bad position on Smugglers Run. It just means each time that you ride, you're getting a new experience. So, have that game plan, but set expectations accordingly, and remember, at the end of the day, what really matters is collecting that coaxium and riding in the most famous hunk of junk this side of the galaxy. Okay, real rule here, certain rides now have an expiration date. So it looks like our days with some Disney World rides are numbered, and if we don't get on them soon, we're going to lose our chance to say goodbye to them altogether. The first is Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith over at Hollywood Studios. Fortunately, we're not going to lose the high-speed launch coaster completely, but it's going to be re-themed to the Muppets, who will still be boarding you into a super stretch limo, but now you'll be racing to get to the Electric Mayhem concert instead of the Aerosmith concert. The current version of Rock and Roller Coaster will remain open until the end of 2025, but a very Muppety takeover will start to take place by 2026. And then there's Dinosaur over in Animal Kingdom, which we recently learned will be making its final adventure back to the prehistoric era on February 1st, 2026. This will complete the final closing phase of the whole Dinoland USA area so that Imagineers can keep moving forward with Pueblo Esperanza, the new Tropical Americas themed section that'll open later on in 2027. Now, in a way, the Dinosaur track layout probably isn't getting the full boot either. Disney's announced that Dinosaur will be turning into an Indiana Jones attraction as part of the area's transformation. And as all you Disney aficionados already know, the Indiana Jones adventure that already exists over in Disneyland Park has a ride system, track layout, and physical experience that's nearly identical to what Dinosaur currently has. So there's a good chance that the changes being made to Dinosaur are also going to be cosmetic and overlay, and the track experience will more or less be the same. At either rate, we're gonna miss Dr. Seeker and the rest of his animatronic dino crew when they reach extinction. So we're glad we've got some extra time with them even at the start of 2026. Okay, DFB rule, choose the best path to the Rise of the Resistance. Construction, my friends, construction. I'm going to be talking about it a lot for the next, 17 years in Disney World. Disney's in the thick of their construction era right now. I like to call it Wall Disney World. And while the construction in Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom are more tucked away towards the back of the parks, Hollywood Studios' main construction area is right there in the way of your direct path to Rise of the Resistance. Back in June, Hollywood Studios closed up the whole Muppets Courtyard area so that Imagineers could start working on the new Monsters, Inc. land that'll be opening up in a couple years with new restaurants, shows, and the first ever Disney hanging coaster. Do we know when that will happen? No, we do not. We just know it's going to be probably a few years. So there's definitely a mix of emotions here. Sad to see Muppet Vision 3D go, but excited by the possibility that maybe, just maybe, I'll get to live out my dream and eat at the Harryhausen sushi restaurant as featured in the first film. But that doesn't negate the fact that the whole Grand Avenue area now gets more bottlenecked than ever now that we don't have Muppets Courtyard to break away to when we want to escape those crowds. And that means we've got a more bottlenecked path each morning, leading us up to Galaxy's Edge when we're trying to be one of the first folks in line for Rise of the Resistance. So, to be honest, the bottlenecked path of Grand Avenue is still going to be your shortest path to take if you're trying to get into Galaxy's Edge, because the Grand Avenue entrance is going to spit you out right next to Rise of the Resistance shortly after you step inside. Just make sure you're cutting through Commissary Lane versus the whole Echo Lake thing if you really want to take the shortest path possible. But it's also not a bad idea to go the other route to Galaxy's Edge too, the one that takes you through Toy Story Land. Is this path completely void of bottlenecking? Absolutely not. That being said, when you follow this morning crowd, many folks may choose to break off and enter the Slinky Dog Dash coaster line instead, giving you some space to breathe as you continue your trek over to Rise of the Resistance. But yeah, I'm still going to go left. I do think that's going to be shorter, and I think it's going to be less, overwhelming in terms of how long you're going to be in the bottleneck. Your next real rule, pay extra for more Lightning Lane convenience. So you might know about MultiPass and you might know about Single Pass, but how familiar are you with Disney's Premier Pass? Premier Pass is a relatively new Lightning Lane tier in Disney World that we don't always talk about a whole lot on this channel because, well, it's super expensive and you'll more than likely want to default to the way cheaper MultiPass option. But there's no denying that Premier Pass is the most convenient Lightning Lane option available if that's what you're looking for. Premier Pass grants one-time entry into every ride that has Lightning Lane access, both single and multi-pass included, in the specific park where you buy it. So there's no need to stress over any pre-selections or additional selections on the day of your visit. You just pay for the Premier Pass and all the Lightning Lanes are yours to use in that park. So you'll just show up for the ride, scan your pass, and skip over that main queue, no matter when you want to go on them. You'll find a list of all the available rides that you can use your Premier Pass for on the My Disney Experience app. And after each Lightning Lane use, it'll be removed from your list of available experiences, so you'll know which ones you still need to conquer before end of the day. Sounds awesome, right? Well, the not so awesome part is the price point. Here are what Premier Pass prices look like in person per day. Yeah, pretty intimidating, right? This means that if you were to get the most expensive Magic Kingdom Premier Pass for your family of 4 during peak price times, you're looking at spending $1,796 for a day of Lightning Lanes. To really put that into perspective for you, you could spend 2 nights in a standard room at the deluxe level Grand Floridian Resort for around the same price. And yet, Premier Pass still manages to sell out quickly since there are very limited quantities available per day. So if this is like a once-in-a-lifetime trip for you, or maybe you're going during Disney's ultra busy season, like right around Christmas or New Year's, maybe this is your honeymoon and you want to invest in this service to make sure you can see and do as much as possible in a single visit, then you'll want to make sure you're up and at 'em right at 7 a.m. Eastern whenever these passes go live for you, just to improve your chances of securing the ones that you want. Much like a multi-pass or single pass, you can purchase Premier Pass either 7 days before your hotel check-in or 3 days before your visit, depending on where you're staying. And you absolutely don't have to purchase it for every park day if you don't want it for every park day. But unlike the other 2 passes, Premier Pass does not have a park hopping option. So if you plan on doing any park hopping, I'd say skip the Premier Pass and stick with the multi-pass, unless you're trying to maybe knock out as many rides as you can over at Magic Kingdom in just the morning and evening, and you think that Premier Pass is going to be the best way to go about that. DFB rule, always use these single rider lines for a shorter wait. Per the release of this video, there are currently 6 potential single rider lines that you can use during your park day. And these single rider options are available to help cast members fill in all the seats for a ride and to help you potentially skip over the bulk of the main queue, minus the Lightning Lane price point. You just have to be cool with breaking up your party to make that happen. Or it's great for those of us who are solo visitors. So, do we recommend single rider lines? Sometimes, not always. But here's a quick ranking for how we typically feel about each one of them, from least successful to most. Note, single rider queues can be unpredictable and your experience might be different from ours. This is just an average of what our DFB reporters and I have experienced firsthand. Number 6, Rock and Roller Coaster. Maybe things will change when the Muppets take over, but what we've noticed is that the single rider queue, more often than not, ends up being a fairly similar wait to the posted main queue time. Number 5, Smugglers Run. From here on out, I'd say the rest of the single rider queues have done a consistently good job of getting us to the front of these lines faster than if we would have stood around in the main queues. That being said, I'm knocking down Smugglers Run toward the bottom of the list because if you choose the single rider route, then you pretty much forfeit getting to choose your role on board the ship. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit. Number 4, Rise of the Resistance. So Rise sees some of the highest wait times property-wide, so it's nice to have an option that'll help you cut down on your wait without paying a single pass price per person per ride through. But if this is your first ever time riding Rise of the Resistance, I wouldn't recommend going the single rider route. Part of the queue is also a bit of the overall ride experience, so you're going to walk into multiple pre-shows that help build onto the story before you board. But if you choose the single rider path, this often takes you past all those pre-shows and straight into the hangar bay. And the hangar bay is still really cool. That's where you're going to see the room full of stormtroopers that probably pop up on your social media every now and then. But that means you're also going to miss Rey and BB-8 and a flight with Lieutenant Beck and the moment where Poe Dameron calls everyone a fine-looking group of recruits. And really, where's the fun in that? There's also the matter of consistency with this one, because Rise of the Resistance single rider line isn't always available. So there is the chance that it's not going to be an option during your visit, but it's also good to check on the status regardless. Number 3, Test Track. Now that Test Track is back up and running again, is its single rider option still a good option for skipping over the main queue? Signs point to yes, at least in our personal opinion. Recently, we tested the single rider line out and only waited around 10 minutes to board, even though the posted wait for the main queue was 75. I had this experience myself as well. For my first time to ride Test Track, since it was revamped, the ride line was probably at about 60 minutes and I just walked onto the ride in the single rider queue. Number 2, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. Again, love this Epcot option for us. Much like Rise of the Resistance, Remy's is a relatively newer single ride line option and could be testing out on the day of your visit or not. But unlike Rise of the Resistance, we're not really missing any big pre-shows when we choose this single rider line versus the main queue. So we're big fans of this one. I will say though that the Remy ride vehicle can get a little squished, so you're going to be pretty close to the person you're sitting next to, even though you don't really know them. Just a heads up on that. And number 1, Expedition Everest. I'm putting EE at the top of this list because it's been the most reliable single rider option for the longest amount of time. I've used this method several times across several years to cut down my ride waits, and get this, sometimes the single rider line may even transform Expedition Everest into a virtual walk-on. All right, I'm turning it over to you now. What's your number 1 rule when it comes to rides around Disney World? Let us know in the comments or ask us about any more ride rules that you want to know more about. We'd be happy to answer whatever we can, either in the comments or in a future Disney video. And if you're ready to keep the ride momentum going, of course you are, be sure to check out some of our other Disney World ride videos, like our best ride tips for Magic Kingdom. And don't forget to pick up our free Lightning Lane guide right now over at disneyfoodblog.com/multipass. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.